Hello and welcome to the Leaders in Supply Chain podcast. I am your host, Radu Palamario, Managing Director of Elcode Global. Our mission is to connect the supply chain ecosystem in Asia and globally by bringing forward the most interesting leaders in the industry. And it's my pleasure to have with us today Jett McCandless, CEO and founder of project44. Jett has built his expertise in transportation, logistics, and software as a service technology. And 5 years ago, he decided to create project44 to connect transportation networks in real time and deliver seamless interoperability between carriers, shippers, logistics service providers, systems, and customers. Today, over 8.5 million assets are tracked in their system across 48 countries, and they've raised over $100 million through multiple rounds. project44 has also established partnerships and out-of-the-box integrations with over 600 telematics devices, 60 transportation management system vendors, and their advanced visibility platform supports all transportation modes and shipping types, including parcel, final mile, less than truckload, volume less than truckload, rail, intermodal, and ocean. Jett, a pleasure to have you with us today, and thank you for making the time.
Well, thank you. And it's a real honor to be on the show. I appreciate the opportunity to spend the time with you. Thank you.
Our pleasure. And I know that the name itself, project44, has a good story to it. So maybe let's start there. Maybe tell us a little bit about how the name came about, how it's also connected with your vision for the company.
Absolutely. Thanks for allowing us to unpack that. project44's global headquarters is based in Chicago, and there's a really popular highway called Route 66 that ended in Chicago right outside of our office. And that went from Chicago to Los Angeles. And it was really how a lot of import and export happened in this country. But it was a really small infrastructure, really created a lot of bottlenecks in the U.S. And several decades ago, they started project44, which turned into Highway 44. Replacing Route 66. So it's kind of interesting for us to have that right outside of our office. And then also, when you think about what we're doing, Route 66 and Highway 44 was a physical upgrade in transportation logistics, and project44 is the digital upgrade for transportation and logistics.
Yeah. I mean, it flows quite well in the narrative. There you go. It's you couldn't have asked for a better metaphor. So just make sure you don't change your office location.
That's right.
And thinking a little bit about the industry, and it's a big challenge, right? I mean, to move a single pallet of goods from origin to final destination, there's basically changes and interchanges between an average of 10 companies. I think I was reading some reports, 30 individuals, products clear customs, cross borders. There's a change of vehicles. So there's a lot of change of hands and change of papers as well, right? So I think that's basically the main challenge that you're trying to address. And I wanted to ask you, how are you doing it, and some clear examples of how project44 creates a less fragmented chain through your platform?
Yes, well, you and most of your listeners have a pretty great understanding, and I think they live a lot of the challenges in this very complex ecosystem, whether you want to look at it from a transportation lens, a logistics lens, or a supply chain lens. It's very, very complex, and you have manufacturers, distributors, retailers, LSPs, 3PLs, the carriers, vessel companies, the terminals, the ports. There's so many different segmentations, and then within each of those companies there are many different folks that the supply chain and logistics touches. So by its nature, it's very, very fragmented. You add in more complexity as you start to look at it from globally, and you start thinking about the different governments that are involved. Of course, it's kind of in the headlines with news right now. We're talking about tariffs and there's one thing that I think we all know about government. They tend not to be very, very digital. So you have this really manual process that leads to a lot of paperwork, both because there's not one trucking company or LSP that's really global for all modes of transportation, that's the best in all areas. And then you stack on more complexity with the low ROIC or just the low profit margins would be another way to say it. And that's what kind of leads the industry to be a laggard in tech. But the other thing you get is a lot of folks in this industry have moxie and they have grit and they've really come up. And so they're going to find a way to get the answers. And that's why we have so much phone calls and emails and kind of back and forth that adds this fragmentation. What we are trying to do here is provide the visibility and the automation to all the parties of the ecosystem, both within the company and their suppliers and their carriers. And of course, that leads to less fragmentation of data. And companies are able to leverage project44 then, of course, for tactical and strategical reasons. Something like what's a driver's ETA so they can better utilize a warehouse, or they can improve their customer experience. Maybe something more strategic, like they can lower their inventory levels, especially with like seasonal products, or how can they do planning at their retail store location so they know when some of their folks can go on lunch break. Is the truck going to arrive or not? So we notice that fragmentation, or that lack of connective tissue in the industry, really causes that fragmentation.
Absolutely. It's probably, I mean, across all industries, it tends to be one of the most fragmented, and also paper-based, let's say paper-based or archaic type of process-driven industry. And that's where we are seeing a lot of tech development coming in, especially in the last couple of years, and project44 obviously being a good system being developed around it. I'm just wondering and thinking a little bit about maybe to take an example of a concrete example of one of your clients, and you may choose to name them, you may choose not to name them, but and how you help them specifically, and also how did they do the point of, because the getting all the different providers and vendors on the system. I mean, how does that work? Is that easy to do? Is that hard to do? Does that take a long time? How did you manage to to get that done? And then maybe some of the results that they achieved by using project44.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think most people know that Amazon leads the way with visibility, that they were really the catalyst that kind of created this delivery economy. And the idea behind the delivery economy is pretty simple. It's that when someone's buying a product, they're not just buying the product, they're also buying the logistics of the delivery experience when they're selecting who they're buying from, or when they're kind of thinking about how that experience was. And so we kind of package that up as the delivery economy. And Amazon was the catalyst. They were the first ones that kind of said transportation logistics is not a cost center. Transportation logistics is really tip of the spear to customer experience. I'm really proud to say that our largest customer, project44, is Amazon, and so we're able to help. I think one of the most progressive companies in the world deliver that amazing experience and provide that visibility. But we also have some really other amazing customers because we are a platform. We have some of the oldest manufacturers in the world, like SP Richards, which is the oldest in the U.S. And we also have some of the most progressive, modern digital marketplaces like Emerge that use project44. So I think kind of a concrete example, really simple ROIs. It seems like right now most of these companies will really start their digitalization journey with where's their stuff. When we think about a truck or a container, when we think about that really is just a warehouse with wheels. And a lot of companies are starting to realize that there's a cost to that inventory, and that the better they understand where that inventory is, or where that rolling warehouse is, the better they can start to optimize their actually warehouse facilities and their stores. So we've got some great case studies where, instance like Magna, which does a lot of outsourcing of actual car manufacturing over in Europe, and they've had huge efficiencies from inventory and also productivity from us being able to tell them where their product in different inventories at.
Mm. And I like the term warehouse on wheels, and it's more and more of a mindset around that. And there's even I was reading, and I think the startups even doing that on or planning kind of the routing, was the whilst the cargo is still on the ship. There's different programs that can optimize that as well, and I'm sure you might have something in the store around that. I want to, and that being said, I want to kind of I'll jump a little bit to a question that is very relevant. Also playing a little bit devil advocate here, right?
Yes.
Because also there's companies that have fairly extensive teams of internal programmers and fairly extensive IT departments. What would be the benefit of them building their own APIs rather than paying for somebody like yourselves? Or how do you see this situation, this scenario? Because it's a forever conundrum, right? It's like, do you do it yourself? Do you go and outsource it? How do you see things? And obviously you're going to be biased, but maybe just tell us your perspective.
Yes, I to your point, I am biased, but I always most things you just follow the money, and you can kind of figure out how it's all going to shake out. What you're talking about is what I would consider like a pride of authorship. These companies that say that, hey, they can build this type of technology that project44 has developed themselves. One thing that's unique about us versus our competitors when we're talking about the visibility product is that we started with the LSPs and third-party logistics providers. One of the reasons we started with them is, they're fickle. They have a ton of IT resources, and they have the best chance of building something similar to project44. I think initially the reason that we went after that market first is because we knew that they would be the most difficult to onboard their large carrier networks. We knew that if we could provide enough value for them to lease the product from us, that companies with different profiles like manufacturers and distributors and retailers didn't have as large of IT budget or engineering budget for software development would certainly get a lot of value out of us. And I think when we first started the company, to your point, a few years ago, that was our biggest obstacle. Companies would just say, hey, we're going to try to build this ourselves. I think what we saw happening is when their peers or when their competitors started using project44, they were able to extract value from having this visibility and automation in weeks, where the companies tried to build it themselves. A year later, 2 years later, they found themselves still much farther behind. We have over 100 software engineers at project44. So it's very, very difficult to keep up with all those connections to those carriers that we're building all the tools to onboard the carriers, maintaining the connections to the carriers. But probably more importantly than that, it's actually the data that flows. So we give our customers the option, do you want to opt in or opt out of data sharing? Really, we're indifferent to it. If you opt out, then you're not able to purchase our analytics products. If you opt in, then you can purchase our analytics products. And our current customer base spends over $150 billion a year on transportation. That's a huge number. And the large majority of our customers share their data with us to build analytics products. And so there's no company in the world, doesn't matter if it's Walmart, Amazon, name whoever, the largest broker, whoever you're thinking, no one has over $100 billion of data being used to build these analytics products. So now some people may think, hey, that makes, that levels the playing field. But what we found is our really progressive customers use our products for the visibility and automation. They use our analytics products. And then they have some type of team internally that's building their own proprietary analytics. That's their secret sauce that allows them to beat their competitors. And when they focus their engineering resources on that secret sauce, rather than just simple carrier connections, they're able to attract better talent, their time to market's faster, and their customers are happy. So that's kind of how we think about it. I suspect that of the top 10,000 global brands, there will be some folks out there that have that pride of authorship that will want to try to build it themselves. Candidly, I think the two companies that stick out the most that we were never able to get as customers that wanted to build it themselves it was Sears and Toys R Us. And I think we've already seen how those two movies end. So that's kind of that's why that mindset's so dangerous when companies think that way.
There's been a lot of examples actually, and I won't name anybody, but there's been a few also on the 3PL side. But and to stick to data, because that's another sticky point. And on that topic, and we have GDPR, and we have the data privacy, and we have a lot of emphasis put on security. I know that's been very important to project44. So maybe tell us a little bit about how, and it's a major concern to clients, right? It's, nobody wants their data to end up in the hands of competitors or be used by by dubious ways, right? So how do you make it extra safe, and how does project44? How was project4 built around ensuring data security?
We've taken it very seriously from day one. And I think every day we learn, and we challenge ourselves to get better and better at it. But there's two different stories that merge together here, and both are unique, that separate us from competitors. One, we started with a chief architect that came from Oracle, that was responsible for their medical platform. And so, as you know, there's a lot of government regulations over medical data, and it's very sensitive. And it could have some really negative impacts if it leaked out there. And it's at an individual patient level. And there's, of course, the security, the umbrella that for companies that are managing that. Having that level of chief architect design our system in the US was absolutely incredible for us. But when we looked at Europe, and we looked at our competitors that really tried what Gartner called lift and shift, meaning they took their US technology and they tried to shift it to Europe. You see that really they all failed at doing that. The reason why is, to your point, is GDPR is such a serious topic over there, and their systems weren't designed the US systems weren't designed for GDPR. So when we looked at how can we get to Europe, how can we keep the same level of integrity that we have in the US around security and privacy, we looked to acquire a company. And when we looked there was a company that had been in business for quite a while. They thought of themselves as data as a service. They had a great relationships with the carrier community. They had never churned a customer in the company's history, which is incredible. They had the same tech stack as we had. And their software was built hand in hand with not only the best technologists, but also with an attorney, a full-time attorney that specialized in GDPR. So when it was set up by a tenant level, it's all designed with GDPR in mind. We acquired that company last year. We have taken the best practices from both companies, and now the system's fully integrated. So it's certainly more expensive, the approach that we had, but we think to keep the trust in the market, that it's a wise investment.
Yeah, I mean it's probably it used to be an even bigger concern than with time maybe some people have become more or less scared, but then Maersk happened, and then there's a few other things that happened, and then
it's unfortunate.
This is probably going to stay as one of the main topics for systems for a very, very long time to come. I have another kind of devil advocate type of a question, and I think it's relevant because also, and obviously you can take it, but the second part is I'm sure that this question is asked to you by a lot of your clients, because at the moment tech has taken a huge development within the space of transportation. There's a lot of platform and visibility platforms emerging. There's a lot in different angles. How would you say that you're unique, right? So how is, when a client asks you, okay, how is project44 unique, and what can you bring unique to the table in working with me? What would you say?
Thanks for the opportunity for your platform to answer that question. I think we're unique in a number of ways. One, I've been in the transportation logistics industry for about 20 years now. And so I've been fortunate enough to work with some really amazing, talented folks. In fact, quite a few that have been on this show before. And whether that's with a lens as being a carrier, a trucking company, a third-party logistics company, as a consultant helping different folks of the ecosystem, shippers. And so what I saw over those 15 years was the same patterns happening over and over and over again. And that pattern was is that there was not a connective tissue or a communication layer that allowed the ecosystem to communicate, whether it's carrier and supplier and retailer, or any combination that you want to put together there. But what I found is that all the parties in the ecosystem, they really wanted to share the information. They wanted to be able to provide that visibility. And so we really set out to build that communication, that connective tissue, which is why we have the largest API platform in the world. The first application that we're building on top of that is the visibility application. There's a lot of other applications we're able to build on top of this connective tissue now that we have. So I think that's a really big difference, that we're solving the problem from the inside out. When you look at other visibility companies, they're trying to solve a problem from the outside in. And that makes it really difficult when you look at the quality of the data. If somebody wants to take the information and put it in a BI tool or anything like that, it makes it pretty difficult for those companies. Another big difference I would say is that typically in life, whether it's personal or professional, I think you'd probably agree that there's a combination of carrot and stick that you can use. I have a soft spot in my heart for the carriers. Coming from the carriers, they have a lot of there's just a lot of headwinds that seem to be that they've got to deal with every day, whether it's what kind of transmissions to pick out for the new tractors and engines, or what are the regulations for environmental, or the dangers of the liability of the trucks that are driving, driver shortages, the drivers themselves being away from their families. So I'd say the whole ecosystem, they probably have the toughest job there. I think our competitors use a lot of stick, and they try to force compliance from the top down. Our approach is quite a bit different, that we really started bottoms up and said, what kind of value can we provide for the carriers that would want them to participate, that would want them to provide the highest quality data to project44, so then in return, we can help them service their customers better. And those are two really different approaches. And that's why I think we get significantly better quality data from the carriers, and why we have much better compliance. And that's a word that like a shipper would use when they're looking at their results. But the result of that is we're the only technology company in the world that's on the FedEx API integrator. We're the only technology provider in the world that's on J.B. Hunt's API integrator program. We're the only technology company in the world that has Old Dominion's trust as an API integrator. So you really see the carriers rewarding us by giving them tools that allow them to perform better. And that ends up allowing us to provide a better product for the end customer.
And I'd love to also look a little bit in the future. And how do you see, what's next for the visibility market across the world? And also, are there specific variances in adoption in terms of let's say continents, right? Because you mentioned the European market is different from the US market. We haven't yet touched upon Asia. How do you see these things? So one, the future, and two, are there some, regional variances in adoption of the advanced visibility platform?
Yes, absolutely. We definitely see not only differences in geographies or regions, as you mentioned, but we also see it by mode. So in the US, for instance, LTL is much more mature than truckload. So our approach, and again, this is being very carrier friendly, It's let's meet the market where it is, and let's provide tools to allow the carriers to be their best selves. At the end of the day, they are really just trying to service their customer and grow their business. And so we use that philosophy, whether it's Europe or it's South America or it's Africa, whatever continent or country we're talking about, whatever mode, meet the market where it is, and have really high quality data that comes into the platform. Of course, we adjust to whatever the local rules or laws are that government would have, and we also adjust culturally. For example, in Europe, our carrier team speaks 13 different languages. In the U.S., our carrier team only speaks 3 languages. So you see some differences there, but also I think you see that their terminology is different in each region. So how can you adjust that terminology so that people can access information that's most relevant to them?
Absolutely. And I wanted also to kind of bring, let's say, the reality of today, and you're in a hyper-scaling mode. You've grown the company tremendously the last 5 years. What are some of the most important challenges that you face at the moment for your next phase of growth? What are some of the bottlenecks in your operations, maybe in moving forward and growing even faster? Tell us a little bit about that, because it's always good to have also it's a great story, and at the same time I'm sure that there's a lot of challenges, and to keep it real, let's say.
Sure. Yes, I think I've been fortunate enough that I've done the hyper growth several times, and as a consultant I've had some really fortunate positions to be able to help several other companies achieve hyper growth. It's never easy. It really always comes down to the people that you have with inside the company and the culture that you have. It doesn't matter how great the idea is, and it's all about execution. When I look at us specifically for project44, it really does just come down to recruiting the right people. We're based in Chicago, which is I think the right location for the product that we're building, for the company that we have. At least our global headquarters is here. And I think the biggest challenge is, for all purposes, the type of talent that we're looking for. I'd say there's negative unemployment rate, and so just bringing on the talent, retaining the talent, to make sure that we can deliver for our customers' expectations. We're in a really fortunate situation that when you look at our pipeline growth, that's up and to the right. When you look at our revenue, that's up and to the right. When you look at our NPS, which is Net Promoter Score, customer satisfaction, that's up and to the right, and off a really high baseline. So all those things are going the right direction. So for us, it's really just it's about the people. Can we attract and retain the right people, team members to build the products and to obsess over the customers?
And I know a very good headhunter for that. So if you ever need, Elcott Global is a very good company.
That'd be great. I'd love to work.
My 10 seconds of commercial. I wanted also to ask you in terms of some of the principles and some of the principles, but also, for me, it's fascinating what you've managed to build. Personally, and I think for a lot of the listeners, what you've managed to build in the last 5 years. And again, you're the global leader in your field, and it's not an easy, it's a daunting task, right? So, what if you were to look back over the last 5 years and look back from a success perspective, what would you say that some of the most successful things that you did right, or some of the most successful principles that you applied and led to where you are today? What would those be as a company?
Well, I think it goes back to our core values. For who we are as a customer, and I think, or who we are as a company, and just our team living those every day. So you kind of mentioned earlier, I think you specifically said real talk. Well, that's a core value at project44, and having real talk with our customers and with other folks in the ecosystem is something that's really helped us along the way. It's not overcommitting. It's talking to customers about where we currently are at, what we plan on accomplishing. And then also with that real talk, I think it's kind of like a say-do ratio, meaning that if we say we're going to do it, we actually do it. Which that's a core value of Project 44 that we call actions live up to words. Another thing I think that we've done that helped us be the global leader of visibility is obsessing over our customers, which is a core value of Project 44. We just obsess over our customer. We believe that churn of a customer is only acceptable through death or marriage. So we've got a really lot of talented people across the company that are working really hard on that. I guess the way that we're able to get that all together is because of another value of Project 44, which is collaboration. So how do you get your not only your customer success team to obsess over the customer, but how can the engineers also obsess over the customer? And how can accounting obsess over the customer? And how can we kind of tie all these values together so that we can get the full wood of the spear behind the tip? And if you can put all those together with the right vision and the right people, that's how you're able to overcome some of these obstacles that many, like when we first started fundraising 3 years ago, I would say, probably 40, 50, maybe even 60 VCs passed on us. They just said there was going to be, to your point, too daunting of a task, too hard to do. And I think our team's proven that they're up for that type of challenge and embracing our values to pull it all together.
So it's all about the team. It's a lot to do with the team. It's a lot to do with the culture. I could not agree more with your points there. And I want to bring another very, let's say, very tricky. I don't know if it's tricky, but it's definitely talked a lot about nowadays, especially with hyperscaling and with startups that go very fast, which is profitability, right? It's like, it's almost like when we look at Uber and what they're currently doing, there's almost not a very clear sight in terms of their profitability. And again, maybe I shouldn't have named them, but anyways, I did. But how do you think of this point, right? I mean, in terms of the future, in terms of Project 44, you continue to grow, you continue to scale, you continue to mature. What's also your path to becoming profitable?
It's something we think about, but what we obsess more over right now is delivering value to our customers. And I think there's probably two different schools of thought there. It's really hard to be profitable and be a tech company and have hyper growth in a company like ours. It's in a lot of different geographies that has the complexities that we have. We also are what's known as a network business, or we have network effects. It is tough. But I think there are enough examples out there that show that if you, once you get to a certain scale and a certain size, and if you build products, not a service company, that profitability comes at a certain point. I think the book that probably does the best job aligning with how we think about it is the book 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. Does a great job of explaining kind of the mindset that we and our investors kind of bring to the table, which is deliver incredible value, and the profits will come later. I think for us, when we're thinking about, and I guess we talked about earlier about what are the challenges, what are the bottlenecks, and I was fortunate that I didn't have to mention capital, because we have tremendous support from not only our current investors, but also from other investors who would love that are very interested in investing in us. And so for us, it's really about building that network. And the reality is there are likely millions of companies that will want access to that network, and to that scale is where the profitability comes from. It's not the first 2,000 companies that help us build the network.
Well said. And I wanted to, from your perspective, CEO of the company, right now and maybe for the next years, I mean, it will change, but what are some of the most important metrics that you track to let you know that, look, Project 44 is going the right direction?
For us, one of the most important is how happy are our customers? Are our customers happy with our product? That's something that is a true North Star for us. Another metric that we look at is, of course, revenue. At the end of the day, it's a good indicator as to if the products that you're building are aligned with what companies out there want to accomplish. And of course, we also look at the number of carriers and telematics devices that we're connected to. For us, we want ubiquity. We want to be connected to every truck, train, plane, boat, barge, rickshaw, SpaceX, drone, whatever it is, anywhere in the world that can connect, or they can deliver a product. We want to be connected to it. So we're always measuring that. To unpack more, I would say, we have 25 KPIs that we track as a company that we all get access to on a dashboard weekly that roll up to 5 strategic objectives. And so that really start to unpack that question a lot more as to how we're actually running the business month to month, quarter to quarter, and year over year.
And actually everybody has access. That's an interesting point. Everybody has access to so anybody in the company can kind of see the performance across the board, or I mean, is that only for senior management? How does that work? Because it would be an interesting also, again, to your point of making how does the engineer care about the client as much as the sales guy does, or maybe as close as the sales guy does. How does that work?
Yes, you're welcome to come to our office. I'd love to host you here sometime. And one thing you'd notice if you came here is that there's an incredible amount of information. I think we have maybe 50 or 70 monitors in the office that all these different dashboards that show all these important metrics. And that not only are they by company or by department as to what's probably important to them, but we also share other departments within kind of that seating arrangement, so that there's there's transparency across the organization. Regarding those 25 KPIs, all of those roll at a desk level, roll up to those 25 KPIs, and everyone in the leadership team and executive team have access to that. We share that information also in our town halls that we have monthly. We don't necessarily share it every month. We do share that information from time to time throughout the company. So I try to share. I think for us, it's striking the right balance of it's not withholding information like I think a lot of companies traditionally do. For us, it's about what information can we surface to our team members that's relevant to them, that helps them make better decisions, that gives them access to the cadence of the company and kind of where we are, so we know where we're winning and where we're losing.
And yeah, it's so important to have. I mean, whatever gets measured gets done, right? Like the great management figure Peter Drucker said. So that's key as well. I have another interesting question that was put here, and I think it's extremely relevant because we seem to be in a time where there are a lot of similarities between the state of technology companies today and in 2000 when the dot-com bubble burst. Do you have any thoughts or prediction in 2019? Will this be the year the bubble bursts? Will it not? How will that happen?
It's I find myself on my free time kind of pondering that question. I can tell you as the CEO and founder of project44, there seems to be an incredible amount of interest from institutional and strategic companies to invest capital. And there certainly is more capital sitting on the sidelines that has a charter that requires it to be invested in certain time periods than we've ever seen before. I have thought, like many people, is this like the .com bubble? But I also, when I think about the question, I look at, there's quite a bit of differences between it. One big difference is that we're actually creating real value. Now we're in the .com bubble. We didn't see necessarily the value creation that you're seeing. Like, for instance, for us, going from all these phone calls, emails, manual processes to making it digital, like we're doing, providing that visibility, that's real value. There's a real hard ROI there. What I've found even in recessions is that anything that has an ROI seems to work well in a bull or bear market. But I also think that if you look at even some of these really large outcomes that we're seeing now, the multiple, whether it's by subscription or it's revenue or whatever that multiple is, it's quite a bit less than the multiple that we saw in the .com bubble, kind of towards the end of it. So as crazy as it sounds, is some of these multiples are actually pretty reasonable right now. So I think that the fact there's real value being created, and there's so much capital on the side. But I think there's also something else that's unique, is that you don't see as much of these large companies investing in R&D like we've seen for over the previous 100 years. And so they've essentially consciously or unconsciously made a decision that they're going to outsource R&D to startups and then acquire that innovation for growth engines. And so many of these companies are really well capitalized to acquire startups, and not just tech, but startups in general. I was just, prior to this, I just had a great energy bar called RX Bar, and Kellogg's, they're a block away from us here in Chicago. Kellogg acquired them, I think, for like $600 million. Really simple, innovative product, but it's just an example of innovation that you didn't see inside the company. I think we're seeing that also on the technology side.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'd love to ask you also, in terms of, we've talked about US, we've talked about Europe. How about Asia? Your plans in Asia, and specifically in Asia, you're going to come across, and as you well know, there's a different set of challenges, because you talk about Indonesia, you have 17,000 islands, so you're talking about archipelagos, you're talking about Philippines, there's other countries like that. It's not necessarily one compact block of land. So, it's kind of two questions in it. So, what's your plans for Asia in general? And then the second question is, how will you deal with the complexities of archipelago countries?
Yes. And it's kind of the same answer for both questions. So our goal at project44 is ubiquity. And we will meet the market where it is. Because we have high quality data, and because we're a multi-mode platform, we have the ability to stitch different modes together, meaning we can stitch together a barge with a terminal port, with a truck, within a train or rail, and then back to a vessel that then goes on to land, and then to air. So I think that puts us in a unique advantage for some of those regions where it requires multiple modes. And I think for some of those areas, they're more advanced in technology, and other areas are less advanced in technology, and we'll meet the market where it is. And I think it's a great opportunity for some of the less developed regions to really be able to leapfrog ahead, because they don't have the legacy technology to kind of overcome or You don't need to justify sunk cost of legacy technology. And yes, we plan on Asia. We have a lot of customers. You can use project44 outbound Asia to Europe, to North America already, and you'll be able to South America here before the end of the year. So we're pretty excited that, and we'll be intra-Europe here really closely. So really excited about that.
And I'd love to kind of go a little bit deeper into the talent side, because I've been, and actually specifically we got a question, and the question sounded like this. It looks like Jett has some real world-class players in his team. What's the secret here, as they would normally be gobbled up by the usual huge tech companies? And you did mention that the employment is negative on the type of, engineers and coders and software programmers and that type of skill set. So what's your secret sauce? How did you attract them? How do you keep them?
For us, I think it's a combination of different things, but I think A players attract A players. I think B players attract C players. So for us, it's really about always making sure that we have the right recruiting and procurement or interview process for folks. And I think it's also when they're on board, the team making sure that we retain them. Now, project44 is not the right fit for everyone. What we do at project44 is really hard, and I'd say there are most startups and most tech companies are probably an easier place to work at in project44. And we don't, it's not hard to work out because we create artificial challenges or obstacles. In fact, we work really hard to knock down friction wherever we find it. But we're solving tough challenges. Shipping and logistics is probably one of the oldest industries in the world. And we have to attract people that are really interested in solving these really difficult problems. And for the right folks that are competitive, that really like a challenge and want to work with A people, then project44 seems to be a great fit for them.
And I remember that, we met in Gardner, Barcelona. I remember that I met some of your team members, and some of them specifically, I remember this conversation, and I'm going to bring it because I think it's an important point. It's also an interesting point given the dynamics of the market today. So he was a very senior executive, I think, senior in terms of both experience, but also age. And he was almost saying something to the extent, and we were having this conversation around the topic of diversity. So we were talking about, having a diverse workforce, and he was saying that project44 approached him, and he was semi-retired, and then he was very engaged and liked the vision of the company, and then he decided to join you. But what I liked is the fact that you kind of took the approach of, in his case at least, I'm sure it's quite a varied workforce, but very experienced, almost at the end of the career, but obviously coming from the industry and he knows the industry very well. And you got him in to add a certain flavor. He was saying that he's learning a lot from the young generation within project44. I think the other way around. How do you also think in terms of diversity and kind of balancing skills and balancing also experiences, ages, how does that play a part?
It's a huge part of the success of project44. It's diversity of thought and experiences and backgrounds from all different parts of the world and age. To your point, it's something that we take really seriously here. For us, I think that we just have a zero tolerance for anyone that doesn't embrace diversity, and that we are constantly challenging ourselves to put the work both in local communities and nationally to find talent that can add the most value to our customers and to the team. I think the solving that not only is it good for the company and our customers, but it's also good for the community to be able to have so many different people with different backgrounds participate in in building Project 44 that I think is going to have a really huge impact on mankind.
Mm. And there was another thought that came to my mind, again, coming back to coming into the leadership realm, right? And hyperscaling involves you hire people for the role today, but then basically the same people in 12 months might have all of a sudden a team of 20, 30, 40 and people under them. So from a leadership perspective, what do you look for in people? How are you able to assess, is this person like a future leader of the organization or not?
Well, I think to your point, when you start out in you're a smaller team, you tend to be a lot of generalists, and and as you start to grow, you start to hire people that are more specialized. And as you start to hire more specialized people, there's opportunity for folks to go from an individual contributor to a player coach to an executive role. And so what I typically do is I think that Project 44 has a responsibility to help these folks, our team members, be their best selves. But I also think the team member has a responsibility to invest in themselves, whether that's through books or programs, or executive coaches, or there's a whole number of things to go through. And so to have a combination of programs, being a startup, I guess now we're a growth company. Resources are limited, but we do have things like continued education. We have some internal programs that we've recently kicked off with, for managers or for individual contributors that want to become managers. So there's a number of ways that I think we approach that, and we have some really amazing people that have started out at the company early on, that have moved up in the company into some leadership roles. And sometimes they say, hey, I need to, I could think of a few examples. They say, I think I've gone as far as I can go. The company needs someone with more experience. How about we bring someone in with more experience that I can learn from, and then and we can accomplish our goals even better. And I think that's that kind of that real talk as a value that we have, and that collaboration and that accountability that we all have across the table. It's not having an ego. It's about us all working towards our goal. And when you can create that type of culture, everybody wins, including the person that raised their hand and said, hey, maybe someone else with a little bit more experience could be brought in, because they then get to mentor that new individual, and then they're able to transfer those skills not only internally here at Project 44, but if we're being realistic, people don't stay at companies for 25, 40 years now. So they're able to leverage that for wherever their next adventure in life takes them.
Final question from me. And I like to ask this, Sven, and particularly also in your case, you've had an eclectic career. You've done all sorts of things. Now you're the CEO of Project 44, and it's been a great story. When you're to look back, what would be some of the best pieces of advice that you've received throughout your career and now your startup life, and that have helped you the most?
I haven't reflected on that question in a while. But the things that come to mind immediately are you're only as good as your word, and I think that's really important. So, especially in an ecosystem as small as we are, it tends to be kind of basic advice of surround yourself with people that are smarter than you are. Don't burn bridges along the way, and the more you think you know, the less you actually realize that you know. So I think it's just kind of some of this the basic advice that's much smarter, more accomplished people have been recorded in various ways, have really captured. I'm not aware of any type of sustainable get rich quick or instant success. It often is many years of just doing what you're saying you're going to do, and providing value to the team members you work with and your customers.
Yeah, and I love love that. I think we've been also for many years and hundreds of years, people have been looking for the get rich quick type of formula. And there's been all sorts of books and publications that you could buy, some dodgier than others, in terms of the 5 and 7 or 3 steps of becoming a millionaire overnight. But yeah, in general, they don't work. And fundamentally, I also agree wholeheartedly with you that fundamentally success is at the heart is following a few principles and doing it all over again and all over again and all over again, and having the patience to grind it over. So so thank you for the sharing, Jett, and it's been a very insightful discussion. Appreciate the keeping it real, and appreciate the good examples that you've shared. And we wish you all the best in project44, all the best in the continued success and continued growth.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for all your listeners out there for the support and to you. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
No, pleasure.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you liked what you heard, be sure to follow us on radopalamario.com/podcast for all the show notes, links, and extra tips covered in the interview. Make sure also to subscribe to our emailing list to get the news in the nick of time. If you're listening through a streaming platform like iTunes or Stitcher and you like what we do, please kindly review and give us 5 stars so we can keep the energy flowing and get more people to find out about our podcast. I'm most active on LinkedIn, so do feel free to follow me to stay tuned for our latest articles as well as future guests for the podcast. And if you have any suggestions or any other idea, please feel free to write to me. I respond to all. And also, please make sure not to miss our next episode, where we will be having a few other C-level and top leaders in supply chain joining us. Stay tuned.